So question, how do we do life in our spiritual family? Well, it begins with a second surprise in the text, and that is a new perspective. A new family takes a new perspective. Notice in the text, Jesus says, look. Okay, look at verse 47. You see the word there, look, but not with your eyes. They say to Jesus, look, your family's outside. I'm talking about his natural family. But Jesus says, no, you look, but differently. There in verse 49, it's actually translated here in our text, but it's that same word, look, in the Greek. It's a verb of seeing. Here's my translation for verse 49. Look, Jesus says, my mother and my brothers, as he's indicating those who are in this room, gathered around his teaching, the gospel. So he's talking about his spiritual family. These people are my family. And so they do. People in the room, you can imagine them looking around the room going, these people? What a disappointment. These are normal people. We thought you were the Messiah. This is your family. Oh, gosh. And of course, there are single people there. There are married people there. But more importantly, there are people who have failed at singleness and marriage in the room. Remember, tax collectors and prostitutes. Who wants that in your family? So these are the people, these are the loneliest of the lonely when Jesus says this. And yet, look, my mother and brothers and sisters. By the way, notice the gender there in verse 50. This is Matthew's way of telling us that Jesus has female disciples as well as male. Look. So there's a new perspective. And you should know this. Jesus doesn't look at you the way others look at you. And Jesus asks us to look at others the way he looks at us. A new family takes a new perspective. And I look around this room, I don't know if we have any tax collectors or prostitutes in this room. There may be, but nothing would be more biblical. I do know there are people in this room who have failed at marriage and singleness because I'm here. In this room, we've been unfaithful in our singleness. In this room, we have broken our marriage vows. We've been mistreated and wounded. We're divorced. We're sexually frustrated, confused, addicted, and we're lonely. I'm not just talking about singles. The loneliest person in your zip code is not likely to be a single person, in my experience. We all feel lonely. Even in the church, yeah. A few years ago, someone shared a letter with me that says what I think many of us feel. So I'm going to read this letter to you, if you don't mind. This person writes, Dear church, I'm in such pain. I just had to write something to someone because there's no one to call at this hour. Don't think poorly of me because I'm still learning to lean on God and because sometimes I need arms to hold me. Even God said it's not good that man be alone. I like what I've learned from the Bible, even though it's hard to accept some things, but I need more. I need to see Jesus modeled by the church. I need men in my life who love me where I'm at, who are willing and able to spend time with me. I need men to show me examples of what a healthy relationship between men looks like. Not just an hour a week at Sunday school, but in real life. And he writes, do you, dear church, want to know the real reason I stumble into pornography and gay sin? It is for one reason. I am starved for relationship, for friendship, for touch. But I'm afraid to ask and be told no yet again. Oh, church, do you want to crucify the homosexual or save him? If you want to save him, here I am, and I'm asking to be saved. I'm asking you to be Christ's arms and ears to hold me and let me cry, to let me know Jesus does care about me, that even though I feel rejected and broken and alone, at least someone does care. Or maybe it's just easier to throw the first stone. Some days I would thank you for throwing that stone. The pain would end. Signed, an anonymous sexual struggler. How many of us feel that way? Alone, even in church, especially in church. It happens even in a small group. One day, a couple tells the group that they've separated, heading for divorce. And the rest of the group is shocked. been together for 5 years. We had no idea they were even struggling. Why? Because it didn't feel safe for that couple to tell anyone else in the group. And yet here were the resources that they needed, a community to walk with them, to pray with them, to care for them. See, what I'm saying is we're all, in some sense, anonymous strugglers, single strugglers, married strugglers. And the problem is really with the way that we look. It's our perspective. It's the way we see others, the way we see ourselves, the way we think others see us or fear that they will. The Apostle Paul takes a turn with the word look as well in a different form. He says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5:7, he says, we walk by faith, not by sight. That's that same word there, sight. He's talking about the way we see one another. He says in verse 12, we don't boast in outward appearances, that's sight. We regard no one from a human point of view or according to the flesh, that's sight, he says, verse 16. How would he look at people? Well, with the eyes of faith. As Jesus looks at them, with compassion. Paul says, if anyone is in Christ, there is a new creation. Everything old has passed away. See, everything has become new. Meaning, don't look at what is. Don't look at what has been. Look at what is coming to be. Look into the future. Look for that new creation. The work of Jesus in their lives. Now, that takes faith. It takes your faith. It takes faith in Jesus to do. So I think I can say the degree to which you see people as Jesus sees people is a measure of your own spiritual growth. How do you see people? How do you look at them? A new family takes a new perspective. Not long ago, we had a dog named Olivia who used to watch TV with us. Did any of you have a dog or a cat that will watch TV with you? It's a special kind of gift. So one day, Ann and I were watching the live action version of Cinderella, and Olivia's in our laps, and Cinderella has these dancing rats, and it drove her nuts. She loved the dancing rats. Her eyes would follow these characters around the screen. Well, you know the story. With the wave of the wand, the mice become footmen. They become human beings around the carriage of Cinderella, humans. And you could see Olivia's brain just explode when that happened, right? She could not compute. And then, of course, the clock strikes midnight and they're back to the rats, but for now, and Olivia will never be fooled again. She knows differently. For a moment, she saw the future. She saw that rats become humans. They become her master. By the way, this is what the theologian calls eschatology. Remember, we've been talking about eschatology. Eschatology is the consideration of things in the end. Seeing things today by faith as they will be seen on the last day by all. And that's the way the Bible encourages us to look at singleness and marriage. By seeing it through the end, what it becomes, what we become. And that's the way to look at one another, too, in the family of Jesus. Jesus says, look around the room. Look around the room when he was there. Look around that room, he says. But not with your natural eyes. If you do that, you'll just see tax collectors, prostitutes, lepers, Samaritans, Pharisees. No, he says, look with the eyes of faith. And you will see children of God. You'll see your own eternal brothers and sisters glowing with the divinity of the new birth. You'll see beauty, and glory, and royalty, and actually divinity, children of God. And you'll hear bouncing off these walls the echo of what the Father says to our earthly brother Jesus. You are my beloved child. With you, I am well pleased. And that's who they're becoming. That's our destiny. But you got to see it with faith. A new family takes a new perspective.